All right, good morning, everyone. Here we are on our first assignment. We're going to be going over and doing our overview for it. Now, this video and the ones we're going to do in the following weeks, I'm going to go through, explain the assignments, explain what it is that you guys need to do, and do it in a way so that, it's kind of like a lecture when we would be going over notes or something in class. Just to clarify, because we've had a lot of questions for this, there will be things posted in the Google Classroom, but these assignments in the Google Classroom are just to further what it is you are doing in the packet. The packet is all the work that we're going to be doing from here on out. So let's take a look at my favorite set of lessons that we do for the entire year, evolution, my favorite topic. So here we have the instructions for the first drawing that you guys are going to be doing. This is homologous, analogous structures. We'll get to that in this presentation, and the comparing embryos drawing. So drawings, you can do them on the page where there's the blank section. They're on 217 and 218 in the textbook packet that you guys got. You need to label them like you do in the text, like they are in the book. Neatness does count on this. Again, you need to be able to follow along and keep track of it. And you can color them with crayons or colored pencils if you have them at home. If not, don't worry about it. Here we have a brief example of the notes page that it is you guys are doing. So we just put this together. It's kind of a little follow along, fill in the blanks. There'll be a lot of it based on this presentation. You can do it while reading the textbook or however you go through with it. So here we have it. Chapter 11, Evolution. Again, one of my favorite units that we do the entire year. 11.1, the one we're doing today, this is evidence for evolution. Now, evolution is just about adaptation. It's how an organism has changed so that it can survive, thrive, and continue to reproduce, to create babies. Adaptations can include any number of things: how they feed, how they move around, how they protect themselves. It can be a different color pattern so that they're able to blend in better. Here you can see we have a hummingbird and we have a moth, and both of those you can see have learned to fly, or at least as soon as the little thing goes away on the screen. Both of these are ways that they have learned to move and to survive. Evolution is just simply the process of how organisms acquire adaptations over time. Here we have, believe it or not, a horse, an Eohippus. This is one of the earliest examples of a horse. It was also one of the first mammals, and they roamed around during the time of the dinosaurs. Here we can see the evolution of the horse, starting from the Eohippus all the way up to the modern Equus horses of today. If you do get a chance, and this is a very fun family trip to go take, driving to Madeira, there is the Fossil Museum there in Fairmead. They have examples of different fossils that have been found in this area. They even have, I believe it's the Merychippus, they even have examples of horses throughout the evolutionary period that they have found there in the area. Again, very fun, at least my definition of fun. Diversity. This is where you get variety. If everything was exactly the same and everybody did the exact same thing, if something came through and wiped out what they fed on, what they did, how they hid, it'd wipe out the entire population of the species. So diversity is what allows them to, get better, to allow them to survive. Scientists hypothesize all life forms evolve from common ancestors. New species branch off from earlier species. Now, it might not seem like that when you look at it or think about it, but you realize we're talking about millions and millions and billions of years of time to change. If you look at people, we have gotten taller in the last 1,000 years. Now, that might not seem like much, but the average height has increased, I believe, almost a foot in that amount of time. That's a lot of change in a short span of time. Now, I'm not saying if we give it another 10,000 years, we're all going to be 15 feet tall, 20 feet tall. I'm just saying that that is one that we have changed and evolved with. Similarities among all cells support this hypothesis. Again, the cells that are within you are very, very similar in how they're made up to the cells that exist in all animals. And to a lesser extent, they have a lot of similarities, if we remember from our cell biology, to what we see in trees and plants as well. All cells have a similar cell membrane. This includes bacteria. Many cells have the same type of cellular respiration, meaning that they have mitochondria that they go through for that. All cells have DNA. All cells have DNA. I want to repeat that because, as we talked about in human biology at the beginning of it, our red blood cells and things don't have DNA, but they serve a different purpose. Evolution is a branching process. An ancestor is an organism which others have descended from. So if we go through and look at this, we can see how it has changed throughout it. We can see that there are different points where we can show how they have branched off. So for instance, born in a shell, that's the difference between a frog and a snake. This is a cladogram, by the way. I should have mentioned that when I started. You can see that the difference between a snake and a kangaroo is that they are warm-blooded. So is a squirrel. The difference between the kangaroo and the squirrel would be this placenta, the way that it is nourished inside of the womb. We won't get into how kangaroos go through this because it's an entirely different process. But if you are interested and you all have time, I would say to look it up because kangaroos are a very, very unique organism, and the way that their babies are nourished in the, I guess we'll say, womb. When you look it up, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's very interesting. Here we have the timeline of life. We can see all the way back from Earth at its earliest point, taking almost a bit over 1 billion years before we get to simple bacteria, photosynthesis all the way up through, but another 1 billion years later, eukaryotic cells, where cells actually have organelles and things in them. 1 billion years past that, we start to get multicellular. And within the last 1 billion years or so, we start to have this explosion of variety of life. Comparative anatomy. This is a study of similarities and differences. So, quick question. What does your arm have in common with a bird's wing, a dolphin's flipper, and one of the front legs of an elephant? Before you say absolutely nothing, this is where we look at analogous structures. They serve the same function, but come from different organs. So remember, origins. Remember, most of you just said in your head, your arm, a bird's wing, a dolphin's flipper, and an elephant's leg have nothing in common. Next one. We'll go back. So here we have the bones of them. Here's your arm, one solid bone. We then have the 2 bones in front that allow it to twist, and the little bones of your hand. Here's a bird's wing. Look at that. 1 solid, 2 to allow movement, and then there's all the small ones that are similar to fingers. Here's a dolphin. Here's its shoulder. 1 bone, 2 bones, all the small pieces. And here is the elephant. Same similar setup. So if we look at these, we can see that, yeah, they do have some suggestion that they came from common ancestors. Those are homologous structures. Those are structures that have similar setup. Now, do they do the same thing? Does your arm do the same job as a bird's wing or a dolphin's fin or if an elephant's front leg? No, they don't. None at all. If you flap your arms, you're not going to swim better and you're not going to fly. Now, like the elephant, yeah, I guess you could walk on the front of them. Backing up. So then those are homologous structures. Analogous structures are things that do the same function, but they come from different origins. We'll get to that in a second. So there are many different lines of evidence. Here we have an analogous structure. We just looked at how the bird's wing is put together and how the moth's wing is put together. Now, if we look at those two things, do they do the same job? Of course. Moth wing helps it to fly, bird's wing helps it to fly. Are they put together the same way? Not even remotely. Birds have bones inside. Moths, they have an exoskeleton around the outside of the wing. So there are many different lines of evidence. We can look at comparative anatomy, comparing how things go together. DNA, our new one, we definitely got to do that in class and look at it and discuss DNA. That's a big one. And finally, the fossil record. Can we find organisms that are somewhat similar in how they're put together and live in a similar environment? And again, we have our homologous structures. So here's our next drawing. Oops, I guess I forgot to mention that. This is one of the things you're going to have to do for the drawing, the homologous structures, and the bird and moth there, the analogous structures. Both of those are on 217. Now on 218, we have probably one of the most interesting drawings in our entire thing. This is where we compare embryo development, animal development. And look at this. Here we have a fish, a calf, a baby cow, and a rabbit. Now look at them in an early stage. Look how similar they are. Now, where we talked about the cladogram, how they branch off, two of these are closely related, the calf and the rabbit. So we look as they continue to develop. The fish looks way, way, way different. But look at the calf and the rabbit still. Very, very similar. And finally, we go down and we look at them as they develop more. The calf and the rabbit, similar still as they get further and further along with it. The fish is very, very different. And then finally, we have the calf, the rabbit, and the fish as they are born. Now, there is one difference I would like to point out for this. No, the calf and the rabbit are not the same size as they go through and develop. Believe me, once you start putting size into this, things look very, very, very different. It doesn't take very long for the calf to be much bigger than the rabbit. But if you put them on a similar size scale, yes, they start to turn out similar looking. And here we have DNA sequences. Now, this is where things tend to get where people get a little upset about it when we look at it. There are similarities in our DNA-based sequence. Now, we're not talking about genes. We talked about that before when we did the human genome. But we're just talking about things that are similar. And we have similarities. We have similar gene sequences, similar DNA-based sequences with all these animals. We also have the same type of DNA put together with the same proteins, the same sugars, and the same 4 base pairs as we do with every other living thing on the planet. So you have the same 4, adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine, as almost every living creature on Earth. So there is a lot of evidence through DNA-based sequencing. Fossils, one everybody loves, because this is what gave us the ideas for a lot of myths about dragons and such, dinosaurs. Fossils, a remnant. This is what's left over. So here we have our poor T-Rex. He died. His body got covered up really quickly, which is important. And over time, sediments, they cover him up. His bones, which should have been eaten away, end up absorbing minerals from the soil. Now, this is where the bones start to absorb in the different things, and they go from being bone into rock. So this is where we get our fossils. And this is probably one of our easiest ones with it, the fossil record. Newer layers, meaning things closer to the surface, are younger than the older layers, the things that are further down. So older equals deeper. The younger ones are closer to the surface. All right. Well, I hope everyone is having a good time at home. I hope everyone's doing their work. We're not staying up too late. We're getting things done. Remember, this packet has been put together so that you are doing basically one page, that's a drawing and a page of notes per week. Don't try to rush it and go through and get done as fast as you possibly can. I don't want you guys doing that. We want you to spread this out so that you're able to continue learning throughout the course of our 6 weeks of distance learning. Remember, if you have any questions, please email me. If you're unable to use a computer, you don't have a computer, internet, whatever at home, when you have your weekly check-in with your homeroom teacher, ask them. They can get a hold of me if they don't or you don't understand something. And I know I said this before we went off, and I've emailed some of you guys saying before we finished, no, I wasn't going to miss you. I was going to be happy being at home. That's not true. I miss being at work. And I'm sure a lot of you, even though you said you never would, miss being at school. So I definitely look forward to next year seeing all of you guys as 8th graders. And I look forward to seeing your guys' replies, your emails, and hopefully, gonna beg for a little bit, hopefully some of your thanks when you guys go through and put them together and send them to Mr. Gong. So for now, you guys have a good day. Remember, study the materials. Hope everyone's having fun, staying safe. Talk to you guys later. Bye.